Welcome everyone to another Far East Wargaming video debrief. This time we're going to talk a little bit about SNN Battle Report's No Retreat, Horus Heresy 4. Today I'm Jason, I'm joined by my colleague Paul.
Pleasure.
We are very happy to bring this to you. We were both lucky enough to be selected as participants for No Retreat 4, which was recently held in Gibraltar. It's a fantastic event. I highly recommend it. We'll talk a little bit about it in today's video. But we'd like to give you kind of our feelings, kind of the event, what we did, what we brought. So just kind of the experience, we're going to summarize it for you. So maybe we'll start just a little bit, Paul. This was your first time to go?
That's right. It was indeed my first time in Gibraltar. And to be very honest, I mean, us being based in Malaysia, looking at a map, Gibraltar is pretty freaking far away.
Yeah.
So I probably wouldn't have gone if it wasn't for Jason's hard selling on how amazing this event is / was. And I can attest to that now. Honestly, it was a great experience and I can highly recommend it to anyone. It is a little bit of a stretch to travel there. So you probably do need to plan with a bit of budget.
Yep.
But I would say it's totally worthwhile. Not just for the actual gaming, but the entire event, right? It's as much a social event, I want to say, as it is a gaming event, right? I think most events probably stretch across 2 days only, which are pretty packed with gaming, maybe a bit of drinking, but this event actually stretches across like 3.5 to 4 days. So most people who go there actually take some kind of leave and they take a bit of a holiday. So as I mentioned, it has all kinds of social elements from hiking up a mountain, a barbecue, doing a boat tour with dolphins. So yeah, all in all, a great experience and can highly recommend it.
Excellent. Yeah, and so if you've seen some of our other videos, you might be aware that I also had the honor and the pleasure to attend No Retreat 3, which was held in January of 2023. It's my first time to go to the event. It's always been on the bucket list. I had such a fantastic time. So to Paul's point, I was able to convince some of the crew here to also try to apply. So why don't we talk a little bit. There is an application process. You do have to pay the entry if you're selected. You do get to participate in all these different kinds of activities. But why don't you talk a little bit about your experience with the whole application process and how that worked?
Sure, yeah. Let me try to recall the details. It seems like it's been a while ago now. But yes, so in general, I think about this event is as much about the kind of like nature and style of the armies as about the playing. So there are, at least at this event, there was only 24 slots, and I think they had about double the number of applicants as there were slots available.
It was like
roughly.
maybe even 80 plus applied.
Wow. So yeah, there was basically a kind of process where you had to submit some photos of your army, tell a little bit about your army, and then you would be contacted by one of the EOs to kind of receive confirmation or not on whether you would be able to participate. And I think that's a pretty good way to quote unquote filter it. Filter maybe is a harsh word here, but definitely I think for this event they have probably the highest standard of painting and army selection of any event that I've seen. So having this kind of like invitation only model helps to kind of amplify the overall quality of player experience, army experience, etc.
Yeah, I totally agree. But don't let any of that discourage you, right? Because yes, there's some amazing armies. We'll talk about that in a moment. There's some very talented people that participate in these types of events. But ourselves, our armies, I would say, are probably not the highest of the people that were there, but we were still selected. And it's as much about, like Paul said, the army, the look, your personality. It's about making sure it's a fun gaming experience, because it's really not so much about the competitive. It's more about the narrative, and I think that also fits into the selection process that they use for the applications. So why don't you give me a feel for what you brought?
Sure.
Right? We'll talk a little bit more about
Sure.
the event in just a moment, but kind of what did you bring to this after you got selected?
Yeah, sure. So what do I have in front of me here? The entire event was 3K points, FYI. This might look quite small for 3K points. That is obviously because more than a third of this army is this squad up front here. This event does allow for Primarchs and special characters. However, if there are multiple players fielding the same army, so there were 3 Imperial Fist players, you kind of have to align beforehand who will bring Dorn, who will bring Sigismund, etc. You can't have duplications there. So yeah, my force, Imperial Fist, obviously, and it's, I would say, quite a lean army. Lean and mean.
But not Stone Gauntlet?
Nope, I'm not playing Stone Gauntlet. I feel like maybe that would have already disqualified me from the get-go. So not to say that Dorn and 10 Huskarls, as I have here, aren't quite a brick to choose through. They definitely did quite a bit of work at this event. I think there were actually special points for opponents that killed a Primarch, and Dorn did not die in any of the 5 games. The Huskarls themselves did a lot of work, so very happy with the squad. And then the rest of the army is kind of built around Dawn and the Huskarls. So I have a 10-man missile launcher squad with a Master of Signal. The Master of Signal is critical because Dawn and the Huskarls will usually deep strike, and so I really need that reroll for the deep striking. Otherwise, they may come only in turn 4, and in a game that might only last 4 turns, that's probably too late. Then I have 2 Contemptors, obviously super reliable in 2.0. This event actually had a limit on dreadnoughts. I think it was you could only bring 3 dreadnoughts of any kind in total.
Yep, that's correct.
So there was some level of moderation. The event has some other special rules, which I think we can go over. Overall, to patch what I would say like some of the weaknesses of 2.0 are. So I also had 5 Recon Marines, Nemesis Bolters, of course, just to have another scoring unit here, and they are reliable. I mean, they don't do a crazy amount of damage, but every now and then you can snipe a sergeant, pin a unit, so very well worth the kind of small points investment. I have a 15-man tactical squad just because, I mean, you definitely need something to score objectives. And
Bolters are good for Imperial Fists.
Oh, of course. I mean, these guys, like, I think I Fury probably 2-3 times across my 5 games, and yeah, getting a Fury of 15 dudes, especially if you're in rapid fire range that hit on 2s, is actually quite brutal. So they can actually do quite a bit of work. They're not just there to sit on an objective. I have 10 tactical support Marines with plasma guns. They would usually be walking around or riding around in this Rhino with a tech Marine with a Cognitive Signum. So they actually would be hitting on 2s. In this squad, I know people say that plasma guns in 2.0 aren't as good as they used to be, but honestly, they did a crazy amount of work for me. I mean, this was actually the workhorse of the army outside of the Huskarls. Like, reliably every game they would probably at least kill a Contemptor. I played one game against a very nice fella called Ash with his World Eaters, and I think he was understandably quite frustrated with this squad, where they killed a Contemptor, they killed a squad of Rampagers, and they killed a block of 20 Despoilers. So these guys definitely well made their points worth. So yeah, I can recommend it. I think having the Tech Marine with the Cognitive Signum is very helpful, so that they actually hit on 2s, because if you only hit on 3s, actually it's not that certain that you can kill a Contemptor, etc. So I would definitely, it's not a cheap unit either. Together with the Tech Marine and the Rhino, I think I'm at 250 points, which for effectively 10 dudes, it's quite an investment. Again, hence my army is quite small. Every unit really has to do their job. You have pretty much nothing to waste here, but definitely can highly recommend that. And then to round out, I had 10 Breachers with 2 Meltas and a Land Raider. This squad, to be honest, I think that would be maybe one of the things that I would replace for the next game. I mean, I think those Meltas pretty much did nothing.
It's a fluffy choice for the Fist, though.
It's
I mean,
a very
Breachers,
fluffy choice.
yeah,
It's a very fluffy choice, and the benefit here is obviously they can take a Land Raider as dedicated transport, so you don't have to give an additional heavy support squad slot for this. So they're okay. The Land Raider obviously is reliable as well. The Land Raider actually is the only unit in this army that doesn't hit on 2s. So it's still reliable and decent. I mean, it helps to have another 5 last cannons in the army.
Yep.
So overall, yeah, I'm quite happy with this army. I guess let's have a look at what you brought.
Yeah, I mean, just to echo one of your points about the plasmas, I've been on the receiving end of those in one of our games here where they erased Mortarion. So I can definitely attest to the power of that unit with the Tech Marine. Just overall, I mean, I think your army looks fantastic. It's not the very oppressive build that we would usually see from Imperial Fists. But I think that's also a theme of the event as well, right? You just don't see people bringing these overpowered or whack, however you want to call it. And again, I mean, if that's your cup of tea, it's your cup of tea. There's nothing wrong with that. But this particular event is more focused, I think, on narrative and more well-balanced armies rather than bringing what's absolutely best.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And that being said, the army still did pretty well. I ended up winning 3 out of the 4 individual games. One game was a bit special, which I think we'll touch on toward the end.
Yep.
So yeah, I think I'm overall pretty happy with this army. As far as things that I would replace or change for the next time go, the carries Contemptor, probably carries, to be honest, is not the weapon of choice anymore in 2.0.
Yep.
It's more like a leftover of 1.0, which was I had the points to fill. Other than that, missile launchers, to be honest, Yeah, I mean, suffice, don't need to say that obviously 10 las cannons are better than 10 missile launchers, but it's still a fluffy choice. So, yeah, overall, I think this is quite a balanced army. I have obviously one super strong brick, and then the rest of the army I try to moderate a little bit. So they probably aren't the most powerful choices. But in balance, I'm quite actually quite happy with the army that I brought to this event. Yeah.
Yeah, excellent, and it looks great, by the way. It's a fantastic army. It's definitely one of the top tier as far as appearance armies here in Malaysia. Now, granted, our scene is very small, but there are a lot of very talented painters here, and this is a really, really nice army. So
Thanks,
thanks for the debrief. As far as mine, so if you saw the video from No Retreat 3 that we did where I did a debrief on my army, I actually played the Death Guard at the event in January. I played them again for this event as well, although I offered to play some other legions. This is the one that was selected. It's actually very significantly different from what I brought to No Retreat 3. So that event was only 2,500 points. They upped it to 3,000 for this one, I guess to allow for people to bring more of the toys. And it's kind of the accepted points value that we would see for Heresy. As far as my army, what's new is I replaced the Delegatus and the Grave Wardens, the big brick that I had. I replaced that with Callus Typhon and a 4-man Terminator squad with Thunderhammers, which is always good. And I gave them a Land Raider. It's a second Land Raider compared to the previous list that I had. That unit did a lot of work. Callus Typhon is an absolute beast when he gets into hand-to-hand, and that unit actually took down Guilliman in one of the games as well, so that was pretty good. And the whole reason why I brought that was actually because I knew that there would be a lot of aggressive armies, the potential to face Knights or Lords of War or Primarchs, and the Death Guard typically don't have a lot of hard hitters, so this is the reason why I needed something to be able to kind of go and punch somebody or deliver a counterpunch as necessary. Other new units compared to January, I added a second squad of Recon Marines, also with Nemesis Bolters, so I have 2 total in the troop slot. Believe it or not, these guys did a lot of their work not by sniping people, but by taking advantage of things like infiltrate to put on pressure or to get on an objective or something like this. Don't underestimate the power of recons even if they don't shoot. And the fact that Death Guard can move and shoot makes them even better.
Of course.
Yep. In the troop slots, I had 2 10-man tac squads with the fluffy choices of power sights on the sergeants, in rhinos with searchlights to get around or camp on an objective if they need to. I also had breachers, because breachers are just cool models, even if they're not the greatest choice and they're very points heavy. But with the Land Raider and with the grav guns, I mean, that represents something like 500 points out of my list as well. But Death Guard grav guns, they can move and shoot.
That's already a huge benefit, right?
Yeah, it's huge, so they can do that. I had 3 heavy support choices that were all heavy support squads, and honestly, with the benefit of hindsight, now in January I only took 2. I took Volkite and missile launchers. For this event, I added the las cannons. The whole reason why I added the las cannons is because I was worried about Knights, I was worried about Lords of War. I didn't have a lot of actual AP2 weapons in my list in January. But again, looking with the benefit of hindsight, I think this is actually probably a bit over the top, to be quite honest with you, and I have no problem with admitting that. It's a lot of shooting, it really is, and being able to move and shoot and hide and do those kinds of things is really, really powerful. I played the Creeping Death Rite of War, so I do have the mandatory Siege Breaker, and he actually goes with the missile launchers, because Sundering missile launchers, don't sleep on that. That's actually pretty powerful, and I was able to one-shot a Land Raider, I think, in one of my games.
Not bad.
Because of the Sunder.
Of course,
So that helps out.
Yep.
So that was a pretty good choice. And then finally 2 Contemptors, one with dual las cannons. The other one I switched off from 2 Fists in January. I gave him a Melta Cannon and I gave him a grab in the Fist, just to be a little bit more flexible and a little bit more aggressive, because again, I didn't have as much AP2 weaponry. I was very happy with how the army performed, not necessarily because of winning games, but just because it was very Death Guard in the sense of lots of infantry, boys before toys, lots of heavy weapons. But I think, again, if I wanted to tone it down, I would probably pull out one of the heavy support squads, because that can be a lot for a lot of opponents to deal with. So to my opponents at No Retreat 4, I apologize if you felt that 3 heavy support squads was a little too much. But yeah, so that kind of wraps up my army as well. Lots of new stuff compared to the last event. Let's move on a little bit. Let's talk kind of about what we did besides the event. We'll get into the event in a little bit, but like I myself, I came early and I took advantage of a couple extra days to go to Spain.
Yeah.
Which is very easy to do from Gibraltar. You can just cross the border, rent a car. We went to Sevilla. My wife and I got to enjoy some time there.
Nice.
I also spent a day before we went to Sevilla doing a battle report for SNN with Pardo, which by the time you've seen this video, You will have seen that battle report already up on YouTube if you're a paid subscriber. It's a Zone Mortalis game. It's really good. Check it out. Subscribe, like. It was an amazing game, and I'm not just saying that. Like, the dice rolls were crazy, so check it out. After the event, I stayed, and I also did another battle report for SNet Battle Reports. So I think the key point is that if you're going to do this event, really kind of leverage the fact if you have the time, and of course if you have the budget.
Sure.
You can go experience a lot of other things, and I think that's what makes it very unique compared to some of the other events, where you're just like maybe in a hotel for 3 days or something like this. You can really enjoy Gibraltar. You can really go to Spain. You can just do all these different activities.
Yeah.
But you and your partner also did something as well.
That's right, yes. So the actual only way to fly into Gibraltar is via London. I think there are some flights via Manchester as well, if I recall correctly. But so for us coming from Asia, obviously the route of choice would be to go via London. So actually spent a couple of days in London before coming down to Gibraltar, which was great, to be honest. I always enjoy London, but now I hadn't been back for close to a decade. So yeah, it was good to spend some time, check out some pubs. Of course, can't be missing that. London is always great, to be honest. Probably still one of my favorite cities in Europe. Very different to the rest of the UK, obviously. So yeah, that was great. And yeah, after that, going to Gibraltar was nice as well. Gibraltar, to be honest, very positively surprised me, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think for many people, including myself, not a whole lot of associations with that place. I mean, okay, you see that's somehow like a southern part of Spain, but you don't really know a lot. But for the first part, actually quite a variety of things to do and see there, right? For such a small town, there's a crazy amount of history. Like over 1,000 years as kind of like a military bastion. So us as Warhammer nerds, there tends to be a pretty big overlap of Warhammer nerds and like military history nerds. So it was great to check out like the fortifications of World War II and even before that of the 18th century, like battles where the Spaniards tried to retake Gibraltar from the Brits. So that was very interesting to see. And then, as I mentioned earlier, I think we did a tour where we managed to see some dolphins. We took a cable car up the rock. We saw some very aggressive monkeys there. So yeah, overall a blast, and can definitely recommend it for a quite small town. Like, you can cross Gibraltar within a couple of hours of walking. Actually, surprising amount of things to do and see there.
Yeah, totally agree. That was what surprised me when I went to No Retreat 3 as well, was just how fun it was actually in Gibraltar. Obviously, you don't need to spend 2 weeks there or something like this, but if you have the extra time, you do have these other activities that you can take advantage of, and I think that's really, really fantastic for the event. Good food choices.
Oh, of course, yep.
Go to the grocery store and buy your own food if you want, or you can go out to eat. Reasonable prices on drinks, which we partake in almost nearly every evening, which is another great aspect of the event, the social nature of
course,
it.
Yeah.
For me, what was also really great was about half of the attendees from this event were from January.
Okay.
So there were some familiar faces, which was awesome. Great to connect with people once again. It's a very social event after you're playing your games, because you're only playing 2 games a day on most days, and you're doing other things.
Sure.
So yeah, that part of it was really nice as well, the social aspect.
For sure. Yeah, I know. I can only commend that as well. I mean, it's not the biggest event, but I think every participant there was a lovely guy, great to hang out with, and
absolutely.
Made some really good friends, I want to say. So from that point of view, can totally recommend it. I mean, I would say you didn't see many of the let's say stereotypical neckbeard type there. So overall, quite a balanced mix of people there. I think like 5 or 6 people came with their partners overall. So a lot of things to do there as well. You can make it kind of a trip with your partner or family if you have a family then. So yeah, I think overall a great event. Both the gaming, the players, the terrain was amazing as well. I mean, the location. So the entire event is held on the Sunborn, which is a 5-star hotel on a kind of docked cruise ship. I don't know if that ship ever went to sea. I don't think so.
Or a super yacht or something. I don't know.
Yep. So really amazing setting. So yeah, all in all, definitely a great event. Why don't you speak a bit about like who would this be the right event for, and who probably would want to look for another event?
Yeah, that's a great point actually. So if you're into the hobby, right, and if you actually look at SNN battle reports, and I'm not really trying to blow them up, but I mean I think it's just relevant. They talked about may the hobby be the winner, right? And that's really what this event is all about. It's about the narrative, it's about the setting, it's about the camaraderie and the social aspect. It's not so much for people that are trying to bring their hard as nails list. It's not a tournament per
Says the
se.
guy with 10 last cannons and
This is not a hard as nails list. Honestly, it's not. It's a hard list. It's not a hard as nails, but
sure.
yeah, it's not that kind of event if you're going to bring, like, for example, 40 last cannons with your Death Guard, or you're going to bring Stone Gauntlet with everything with rerollable 3-ups and all that kind of stuff. It's very hobby focused as well. So actually, the way the award system works rewards people that put a lot of work into their armies. It also rewards people that are just fun to play against, right?
For sure.
Like some of the best experiences I've ever had in playing, I don't want to call it competitive because this isn't competitive, but organized play of 40K or 30K. Some of the best experiences I've ever had have been actually at No Retreat. And I think that says a lot about the players. It says a lot about the selection process.
Definitely.
So yeah, definitely if that's the kind of event for you or the atmosphere for you, the style for you, then by all means go ahead and,
For sure.
and enjoy that. And just remember as well that, I mean, the event is narrative based, so there's surprises during the missions that can completely turn things on their head.
For sure.
And stuff like that. And maybe that's what we should talk about now is the actual event itself.
Sure, let's get into it.
Yeah, we had 3 days of actual gaming. So the half day is if you want to do some of the other activities. So we start on a Friday. We play 2 games on Friday, which I think is the perfect blend because you're not worn out, your brain's not fried, you're not physically worn out from anything.
Of course.
You play 2 games again on Saturday, and then we had a final game on Sunday as well. Yes, there's points for wins, losses, and draws.
Of course.
But there's also points for your appearance. There's points for if you get favorite opponent or favorite army votes. So all of that scoring system, again, it rewards kind of a well-rounded player, right?
Yep, for sure.
What did you think of the way that the games were stacked and, let's say, the tables or the missions? I mean,
Sure.
we don't want to share all the secrets of the missions because we don't want to ruin the surprise for other No Retreat attendees in the future. But what did you think of the structure?
Yeah, no, honestly, I think really well balanced. I think all the tables were great. Like, they all had very unique design. I mean, I think anyone who has been to the more kind of competitive events probably has seen a lot of kind of copy-paste tables.
Yeah.
But here, every table was very unique and very fluffy. There was no table that I would say was like thin on terrain or anything.
Yep.
So that was great. As far as the missions and the style, as far as the missions goes, I think can only recommend it as well. Each mission was quite different from one another. Don't expect that every mission will be perfectly balanced. There might be some missions that are better for one army than another.
Yep.
So that obviously comes and goes with a kind of narrative event. I think something to expect. Again, if you are purely looking at this from like a gaming aspect where you want to test your abilities, I think then, yeah, you have to expect that some missions may be in your favor or in your opponent's favor. But yeah, overall really great and a lot of, without sharing too much, a lot of nifty surprises that happen during the missions, which may catch you off guard.
Yeah.
So yeah, you always got to be prepared for something to happen at the game to turn quite rapidly.
Yeah. I totally agree with your assessment. As far as the tables go, the terrain is phenomenal. And there was crashed, Imperial cruisers, there was desert tables, there was mountainous tables and ruins and lavas, and everything actually had a theme and everything was really, really well done. And I agree with you, there was actually a lot of terrain, which I think personally I like playing Heresy on a lot of terrain. I think it plays better. It kind of tones down the killiness a little bit when there's a lot of terrain, but it also kind of immerses you in the mission.
Of course.
Some of the surprises, they will turn the game completely around. I experienced it in a couple of my games as well, but I thought it was actually really, really well done. And I think the other thing that we didn't talk about as well is this time there was multiple Zone Mortalis tables.
Oh yeah.
And you had actually the opportunity to point up a Zone Mortalis list and play that, or you could even nominate an opponent from the other team or something like this for different effects. So Zone Mortalis was also at play in this event.
Yep, great to have that kind of balance for anyone who wanted to play some ZM. I think nice that they kind of were able to slot that in, and those tables look great as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, they were really nicely done. It was actually the official GW Zone Mortalis terrain, so kudos to the S&N guys for painting all of that because we've slogged through our one table, and it's quite a lot. The last game on Sunday, this isn't, I don't think it's not going to ruin the surprise, so I can just say this. It was more of a team-based event is how I will describe it. So instead of playing individual games, it was a really, really nice team-based event.
Yep.
I thought it was a fantastic touch. It was a lot of fun. People were enjoying it. There was a lot of good-natured banter and laughs and, dice rolls that were crazy and things like this. So that was a lot of fun as well at the last part of it.
Yeah, it was a great kind of finale for the event, right? Like a culmination of the like traitors versus loyalists. So at that point, I think we're tied like neck and neck, basically.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, it was a great kind of final touch, getting everyone in the same room. Like a throwback to the old style of Apocalypse games. I think in total was what 24,000 points on that table.
It was a crazy number. It was massive.
Yeah, so in spite of that, to my surprise, we actually managed to finish the game. It didn't take like 10 hours. I think that's like a concern, to be honest, that I had initially when we started. I was like, oh, are we going to make it past turn 3? But yeah, kudos to Pardo and the SNN team for honing the mission and the play style a little bit for that size of game, because we actually managed to I want to say breeze through in probably about 3.5 hours.
Yeah, it actually went pretty crisply.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there was some little tweaks they did that were really nice in terms of limiting the number of reactions.
Yes.
Certain effects like that would tend to slow the game down, and then being very strict on the time on each turn that each side had to activate and things like this. So that was really, really nice. And then there's the award ceremony, the wrap up, which I think is also a lot of fun because there's a lot of awards that are given out.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's not just about, again, who won all their games or something like this. There was Players' Choice Awards, there were commended units, there were, of course, the overall top threes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a really nice touch as well, and we got to see the photographs professionally taken and stuff like this.
Yeah, that was beautiful. So yeah, one of the players, his partner actually took professional photos during the event, and yeah, I think are they online available for people to check out? I don't even know, but
I'm not sure. It was Bernard's partner that did it.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
If they are available, we'll probably check after the event. I would definitely recommend having a look because they're amazing. I mean, talk about like having a nice setting and like great lighting, etc. Beautiful photos for any of us Warhammer nerds.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think? Let's talk a little bit about the level of the armies there.
Sure.
I mean, that is just insane.
Yeah.
Right?
Through the roof, definitely. I mean, I think there's probably no other event that has this level of painting, conversions. And what's amazing at that as well is the event organizers actually set up a WhatsApp group with all the participants prior, probably like 3 to 4 months prior to the event.
Yeah.
And how some guys knocked out a amazing 3K army within like 2 to 3 weeks prior to the event. It blows me away, right? Like, I mean, I've been working on this army for, I don't know, 1.5 to 2 years now, so I'm probably one of the slower painters. Seeing what's going on in that group, I'm quite blown away.
Yeah, it was amazing, and there's this mix of individual gamers. There are some professional painters that are there. The conversions, the paint level, yeah, absolutely, it's awe-inspiring, to be honest with you.
For sure.
But again, don't let that discourage you, because if you take a look at these armies, you would probably say that they're not the top if you see the photographs, but they comfortably are well represented in terms of the level of the skill, the painting, and things like this.
Yeah.
And for me, it was inspirational, right? Because when I attended in January, it made me want to up my painting game.
No. Yeah.
Right? And so some of the units that I added, I took a lot more time on, and I did some different touches and things like this as well. So, yeah, I mean, just an amazing level. Big shout out to all of the players, because I don't think any of the armies, they're all beautiful, to be quite honest with you, or themed, or, I mean, it was just really, really nice to see.
Yeah, a lot of amazing armies, right? Like, just to give some references from my games. So I played World Eaters 2 games back to back, but both armies were amazingly painted, but completely different in style. So one was actually an armored breakthrough with, I think, 15 vehicles, and then the next game was 120 infantry. So as for the style and differences that you see there, both are World Eaters, but both games were incredibly different. So yeah, I can only recommend the level of painting, the level of army composition, all around quite amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And please check out, you'll see some, my own Instagram channel, you'll be able to see some of the photos from the event. The SNN Battle Reports, Facebook and Instagram, you can see some of the photos from the event. I highly recommend checking them out. They are very inspirational.
For sure.
And there's some great ideas that I've already stolen from some of these people, which was fantastic.
Of course.
Yep. Probably one other thing that I thought was a great one as well. Now, you didn't get a chance to participate because I think you had a conflict, but they did a painting session.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Yeah, they did a painting session as well, which was included with your entry. The painter was a pro painter. I think he works for Green Stuff World, if I'm not mistaken. If I'm wrong, sorry about that. But some of the techniques that he was able to show in terms of speeding up your painting, adding an additional touch or more detail or texture or things like this. I mean, that was fantastic as well, and that would be something that you would normally have to pay for, and to have it included with your entry, I think was really nice to have.
Yep.
Yep.
Makes sense, for sure.
Okay. So now that we've talked about the event, the armies, and kind of the overall experience, the big question is, now that you've done it,
of course,
would you do it again?
I think there's no doubt about it, right? Like, I would definitely go again. The reality is obviously for us coming so far, so the entire journey from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia to Gibraltar, going there, as mentioned, I did a stop in London, but coming back all connected, it actually took 24 hours.
Yep.
So the reality is probably myself, I would go maybe once every 2 years, not every year. But yeah, I would definitely go back. I mean, I can really only recommend it. Probably nothing that I would quote unquote criticize about this event. I think all in all, great experience, and yeah, can only recommend.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel the same way, and the fact that I've done both events in 1 year kind of shows my passion for it and the experience that I had. But just in the spirit of full disclosure, it is a lot of travel, depending on where you're coming from. But that didn't stop people from the United States, ourselves, from Singapore, from different parts of Europe. It doesn't stop people from traveling.
For sure.
You do have to budget for it. Right?
Of course.
Right?
Of course.
Because the entry, I don't have any issue with the entry.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I think the entry was more than fair for what was provided.
No, I agree with you.
Yeah, you agree?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you get a lot in return, for sure.
Yeah, I agree. But by the time you factor in, your travel expenses, your hotel, your food and everything.
It does add up, yeah.
Yeah, it does add up.
Yeah.
The next one is coming up in May. So as you just mentioned, you probably do every 2 years. So
probably, yeah.
Yeah. Same thing for myself. I'm not sure at this point if I'm going to be able to apply. It has more to do with just some personal conflicts, other things going on, rather than, I think, the cost or my experience. I mean, I would absolutely go back in May if I could.
Same, likewise, yeah.
Yeah. So that kind of wraps up, I think, the overall feel for this particular event. It's good to get your perspective on it as well.
Likewise.
As somebody who just joined. So, any parting thoughts, any other comments that you'd like to share? Or?
Well, I guess only final words that I have is if you are kind of on the edge right now, considering if you want to apply, I can wholeheartedly only recommend it, right? Like, as you said, it does cost a bit of money, but I think even if you only go once, this will definitely be like a very memorable experience for the rest of your life. And when else would you go to Gibraltar, right? Like, I mean, to be honest, at least for myself, that I would probably in my life never go to Gibraltar if it wasn't for this event. That's the reality. So yeah, again, if you're thinking about it, but you're not sure, is your army up to par, just apply and see. To be honest, right, like you don't need to be a pro painter to go to this event. Like we are just regular blokes, let's put it this way, right? There are some pro painters at this event, no question about it, but I do think Pardo and the organizers try to balance it out a little bit. So yeah, again, I can only recommend it, and if you are thinking about it, do apply.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. It's kind of a bucket list item, at least it was for me. So going to Warhammer World, playing, LVO and Adepticon, and now doing S&M battle reports, I've been able to cross a lot of stuff off of the nerd bucket list.
Makes sense.
But yeah, absolutely. Apply, give it a chance. It's a lot of fun. If you have any questions about the event that we can share without ruining any of the surprises or something like this, don't be afraid to actually leave us some comments in the video. Be happy to answer those questions for you. Once again, here at Far East Wargaming, we're always happy to have your participation. We love interacting with you. Please keep the comments coming, like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. It really helps us to continue to grow this, develop it, and to bring you more quality content. So for myself and for Paul, thank you very much for joining. And if you've listened this far, once again, like, subscribe, comment, do all those kinds of things. And we'll catch you on the next one.
Thanks, everyone.
Horus Heresy events is you get some awesome swag as well. And I think it would be a shame not to actually highlight this. It's a nice little touch that's included in your entry. And you can see in front of me, I have actually one of the swag boxes from No Retreat 3 and one from No Retreat 4 that just happened recently as well. So they're really nice. They've got some laser engraving on the top of them, which is really, really cool. So you can actually still keep this and use it after the event. The other thing that's also really nice is included in each one of these, you get some nice little giveaway. You get some swag. So there's some of the SNM Battle Reports dice, which are awesome. You can use those for your turn markers or wound markers, etc. You get some buttons. You get some decals. There's a little welcome scroll kind of welcoming you to the event. Some little candies, some treats, a little bit of a nice little sweet tooth touch there for you. It's a really, really nice thing. It's a nice gesture, I think, from the organizers to give you this as well. I get a lot of use out of everything in there, whether it's the buttons on my bags or the dice or the box itself. I'm going to be repurposing these probably for some bits or maybe for some weathering powders or something like that. So we definitely wanted to send a shout out about this and give you the opportunity to see that as well. And again, it's also included with the price of entry. So nice touch from SNN. Thank you very much.